Hello friends, welcome back to session 2 of the Wi-Fi router configuration. In our previous video, we have seen configuration review, connectivity from ISP to termination till your home or offices on the GPON device. We have seen what is GPON device and the functionality. Furthermore, we have seen how to connect Wi-Fi router to your laptop or computer for initial configuration. For those who miss out my previous video, I will be adding a link into the description box for the better understanding. Additionally, I would like to inform you that if in case your laptop doesn't have a LAN port, or if in case you are trying to configure a Wi-Fi router through your mobile phone, you can achieve this by simply connecting your Wi-Fi router through a default SSID username and the password provided by a manufacturer. You can find this information regarding the default SSID and the password on the printed article which is there on the backside of your router. So now in my case you can see that I am connected to a default SSID. I have been connected to a default SSID, that is Linksys 01422, the password being provided by a manufacturer. So let's start with the configuration of a Wi-Fi router. And I have informed you in my previous video that you can access a Wi-Fi router for the initial configuration through a default IP address or the URL. In my case, I will be accessing it through a default URL provided by the manufacturer. It's HTTP linksys smart wi-fi.com. Now, the interesting thing which you will see over here is that it is asking me that whether you want to configure automatically or you want a manual configuration over here. In the automatic configuration, the router will provide you with the step by step and you have to enter the required detail, but for the depth analysis we will be opting for the manual configuration so that you people have a better understanding. So let's start with the manual configuration. It's asking you to accept the terms and condition. Okay, let's accept the terms and condition, proceed with the manual configuration. Just referring to the slide which we have learned, as I told you that whatever manufacturer it is or whatever model of the Wi-Fi it is, Wi-Fi router, the basic terminology will always remain same. So whichever Wi-Fi router you are configuring, whoever is the manufacturer, whatever is the model, this basic things you have to always remember that for configuring a Wi-Fi router, a successful connection needs to define an internet connection, what type of internet connection you will configure on the Wi-Fi router, what are the Wi-Fi settings you will be configuring, the DHCP configuration for the IP addresses to be assigned to the end devices, like when you are trying to connect your phones, your laptops, your desktop to the internet, the IP address requirement that need to be obtained from the Wi-Fi router, that configuration you need to do, the administration part and the logging options. So now it is saying me that Linksys, this is what the error it is giving me. I will say login. Basically, it was trying to detect the internet connection. I mean, whether it was checking that whether your PPPoE internet connectivity from the GPON device is connected to the router. Not only PPPoE, it can be any connection. It was trying to detect the internet connection so that it will allow you for the automatic configuration. But as I told you that we will be doing a manual configuration. So I got my login page. It is asking me for the router password. In some cases, it will ask for username and password. In my case, it is asking for only for the password. So if it is a username and password, you will get a default information from the leaflet which is available in the router box or on the backside of the router. It is printed. So for me, the router password is default password is admin. I will just put the password and I will enter. Okay, so the very first parameter which we need to configure is internet connection. Whatever manufacturer it is, whatever model it is, we need to configure the internet connection. The maybe the dashboard will change, but this basic configuration will always remain same. So we will go to internet setting and we will try to edit the type of internet connection. So friends, you can see over here it is giving me multiple options. It is asking me whether you want to configure your router as a DSCP or you want to configure your router with a static IP mode. or a PPPOE, PPTP, L2TP bridging mode. Let's understand this one by one. Configuring a router in the automatic configuration mode, this scenario will come when you want to make your Wi-Fi router to be used as a wireless access point, and even the second one, static IP. There over here, there will be two scenarios: whether your service provider has provided you with the static public IP address. In that case, you will configure the router with the static IP address, the subnet mask which is being provided, default gateway which is being provided by the service provider, DNS. But most in most of the cases, the option number one and option number two you will be using when you want to configure your router as a wireless access point. So the third is PPPoE, point to point over Ethernet. So over here, point to point protocol over Ethernet. Over here, the service provider will be providing you with the username, your password, and all, and you have to enter those details to establish the internet connectivity. The fourth option is PPTP, point-to-point tunneling protocol, layer 2 tunneling protocol, or whether you want to configure your router as a bridge mode. Definitely, we will be looking into it how you will be configuring your router as a wireless access point through a DHCP or a static IP. We will be configuring a router as a PPTP in the PPTP mode, L2TP mode, bridge mode. But over here in this video, we will be configuring our Wi-Fi router with the internet connection to be PPPoE, point-to-point protocol over Ethernet. So the very first thing it is asking me for username and password. Let's say, for example, my username is Shake123. My password will be pass1234. And let's apply this setting. As soon as I apply this setting, it will take some time. So meanwhile, I will just pause my video so that the video doesn't become much more long. Let's apply this setting. Your router is applied changes. The action you perform may cause devices to temporarily lose connectivity. This may take few minutes. Okay. So guys, the setting is being applied now and I have got the connectivity restored. The second part which we will be looking is the Wi-Fi setting. We have completed with the internet connection. We will move on to the Wi-Fi setting. So we will go to the option where we can configure the Wi-Fi setting. It is under wireless for me over here in this particular device. So I have an option for the Wi-Fi name for the 2.4, where I can configure the setting for 2.4 gigahertz and for 5 gigahertz channels. Let's say over here I am giving my Wi-Fi name to be lab. The Wi-Fi password it is asking me. Let's say I will give a password as pass1234. And coming to the security mode, these are the several different types of modes, and I have explained very well about the modes of the security modes of the wireless in some different video, which I will be putting in the description link, where you can refer and understand the mode. For here I am configuring the security mode to be WPA to personal, and rest all setting I will keep as it is as default. Broadcast SSID, this is the option like whenever you want to hide your SSID, your Wi-Fi name, then in that case you will say broadcast SSID to be no. So once you have enabled this option, I mean set the option as no, then your Wi-Fi name won't be visible. You have to manually add this Wi-Fi name and then connect to the Wi-Fi network. For here I will be keeping this as default and saying that broadcast SSID to be yes. Then for 5 gigahertz channel, it is asking me again for the Wi-Fi name. I will put the similar name to be lab, and the password I will be saying as pass1234. And simply what I will do is I will apply the setting. Just remember, friends, since I am being connected to the Wi-Fi router through the Wi-Fi connection, so now my connectivity will be lost since the Wi-Fi name is changing from Linksys to lab and the password is also changing. Once I apply this setting, my connection will be lost, and then again I have to restore the connection after connecting with a new Wi-Fi name and entering this password. Meanwhile, the settings are being applied. I will keep the video on the pause so that the video length doesn't increase much more. Let's apply this setting. Is again saying me the information that you are updating the Wi-Fi setting, and it is giving me a warning that it will connect or disconnect all the devices, including this one. This one means the from one which I am being connected, and it has given me the information that I have configured the Wi-Fi name on both the band on 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz to be the Wi-Fi name as lab with the password as pass1234, and I have configured the security type as WPA to personal. Okay, do you want to continue? Yes, I want to continue. It is saying me that your router is applying changes. This action you perform may cause devices to temporarily lose connectivity. It may take a few minutes. Please wait until the operation is completed. Okay. So friends, now my configuration is being saved. I lost the connectivity, and again I tried to connect with the new SSID, and I am connected to the router now. So we have completed with our second step also for the Wi-Fi setting, where we have configured the Wi-Fi name, password, and the security modes on the two different band steering, 2.5 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. Let's move to the third step, where we will be configuring the DHCP server configuration, so that your end devices who are connecting for the internet connection on this particular Wi-Fi router will be able to obtain the IP address for the communication purpose. Let's move on again to the connectivity part, and over here in the local network you will be having option called DHCP server. By default it is enabled. Yes, we want this to be enabled. It is asking me for the starting IP address, and by default it is saying that 192.168.1.100 is the IP address, the starting IP, and the maximum number of users that are to be allowed is 50 users. Okay, now here there will be a small difference in some of the Wi-Fi router. There is a setting where it is like the starting IP address and the ending IP address. So over there what you will do, you will be configuring a starting IP address. Let's suppose you want the starting IP address to be obtained to the end devices to be 192.168.1.50, and you the ending devices will be, let's say you will say 192.168.1.150. So in total you are assigning approximately 100 IP addresses. Over here it is something different. It is saying you how many maximum number of users you want to connect on this particular through this particular Wi-Fi router. Let's say you say 100. Once you say that, over here you also you can see the IP address range it has taken to be 192.168.1.50 to 192.168.1.149. So there is a small difference on the basis of the dashboard side, where your configuration might differ, but actually to be very honest, the things are same whether you define a starting IP address and ending IP address, or you say the starting IP address with maximum number of users allowed. It's one and the same thing. In short, you are defining the IP address range only for the DSCP configuration. So guys, you have defined over here the starting IP address to be 192.168.1.50, and you have defined the maximum number of users capacity to be 100. So IP address range it has taken to be 192.168.1.50 to 192.168.1.149. After that, you will simply apply, and meanwhile the configuration is being updated. I will keep the video pause. Apply. Again, giving you a warning that the action you perform may cause the device to temporarily lose connectivity. This may take few minutes. That's okay. We'll simply say continue. Okay, and I will pause the video. So guys, now we are done with the DSCP configuration also, and we have defined the static IP address range and the ending IP address range. We have defined the maximum number of users. So now we are done with the three steps that we have defined the internet connection, and over here we have seen to configure the PPPOE link point to point protocol over Ethernet. Then we have configured the Wi-Fi setting, where we have defined the SSID, that is the Wi-Fi name, password, and the security mode to be WPA to personal. We have configured the DSCP server. We will move on to the administration part. So going to the administration, it is asking me for the local management access. This you will be keeping default as HTTP, because since it is a local management, so we don't need to worry about much more about the credentials, and also you will be simply putting as HTTP the local management access. Then after moving to the logging options over here in the logging options, it is saying you to enable the log, so you can simply enable the log and define what all logs you want to fetch it, like incoming logs, outgoing logs. When it comes to the incoming logs, what is the source IP address and destination port number, it will provide you in the logs. Outgoing logs, security logs, DSCP client log. DSCP client log is nothing like whenever a device is connecting, at that time it will be assigned a particular IP address. Since you have configured this Wi-Fi router as a DSCP server, so whatever the IP address is being obtained by the client, that particular log will be sustained over here as a line IP address, what line IP address was given, MAC address, and so on. So this is all about the logging. Then moving on to the next part, that is monitoring and troubleshooting. Coming to the monitoring part coming to the monitoring part over here, you can see the status of the devices. You will see that it is showing you that this particular device, which is my laptop, is being connected, and the MAC address of this particular device to which I am connected is so and so, and the IP address is being assigned by a Wi-Fi router, and the IP address is 192.168.1.148 is the same one in which we have defined the range, and the connectivity from the Wi-Fi router to my laptop is a wireless. So this is what the status is. It is shown under the status for the Wi-Fi router. The DHCP client table is nothing but, again, if you will go to a DHCP client, it will show you the list of the devices being connected, the name of the devices, to which interface that is connected. If you are connected to the LAN interface, it will show you whether you are connected to port 1, port 2, port 3, and so on, or it is the mode of connection is wireless, and in that case the interface will be shown as a wireless. The IP address which is assigned by this particular Wi-Fi router to the clients connecting, the MAC address of that particular end device, and the expiry time. So this is all about the DSCP client table. Moving to the next part is troubleshooting. When you move on to the troubleshooting part, sorry, you will have a diagnostic options over here. In the diagnostic options, these all the routers will have, definitely the view, the dashboard will change, but these options will always be there. So in coming to the diagnostic options, it is giving you the ping. Like, let's say for example, you have already configured a PPPOE link on this particular router. Now hereafter what you want to do is, like, yeah, you want to troubleshoot whether the configuration you have done up to the router is right. So what you will do, simply you will be putting an IP address, let's say for the IP address of the Google 8.8.8.8 global DNS, and then you will try to ping number of ping packets you want to send, 5, 10, 15, or you want a continuous ping, unlimited. So this is what you can troubleshoot from here by pinging whether the connectivity from your Wi-Fi router to the internet world is okay or not, tracing where the hopes, tracing the path of the particular router. Then you have some other options, like from here you can restart your router, you can shut down your router, you can reset to the factory default setting. If in case you want to back up this router, simply you will go over here and you will click on the router configuration, and under router configuration backup, and it will back up your router. It is unsafe. Sorry, I did wrong. Actually, I need to back up, and then it is saying me that this is some suspicious file or something. Whether you want to keep, okay, I want to keep. So this has backup your router configuration. If in case you have a backup and you're by mistake you have done some wrong configuration, or maybe something went wrong and you want to restore this, so you will simply do or else, let's say in some cases you forgot your username and password and you're not able to access. In that case you will simply reset the router, and if you want to restore the previous configuration you have already taken, now I have shown the backup, so you will restore, click the restore button. You will click on choose file. After that you will go to the path where you have saved, and you will click this open, and it will be restored. The configuration of the router will be restored. So this is all about the basic, from the initial configuration of the router, where we have learned about like configuring the different parameters, whether it is an internet connection, and we have learned that whether your router, Wi-Fi router, belongs to any of the manufacturer, any of the model, these basic terms will always remain same. These configuration parameters will always remain same for all the router model or manufacturer. You have to configure internet. First of all, we have seen whether you want to go for the auto configuration or the manual configuration. In the manual configuration, when you in the auto configuration, when you go, the router will give you options where you simply you need to put the uh, required details But if you go for the manual configuration, which is definitely at the expert level, so you have to configure your internet connection very first and define the type of internet connection. Then you have to move on to the Wi-Fi setting. You have to define your SSID, your password, and the security modes. Thereafter, you have to configure the DHCP server, this Wi-Fi router as a DHCP server, so that your client obtain the IP addresses for the connection. Administration part was a small part where you want to define whether your router want to be accessible to HTTP port, HTTPS port. Logging options, it's up to you what logs you're interested in to open. Then finally we have seen the monitoring and troubleshooting part. Monitoring part, we have seen the status of the devices connected, the DHCP client table, what all devices are connected, what are the IP addresses being assigned, what is the MAC address. The troubleshooting part is being used for troubleshooting the connectivity between the router and the service provider using a ping command, trace command. You have option for restarting the router, firmware upgrade is an option available. Then you can take the backup and restore. So this is all, guys, about the Wi-Fi configuration, and hope you understood the concept, everything. If you have any doubt, please feel free to comment in the comment box, so that I will be able to reply to each and every queries. So in the coming slide, in the coming sessions, we will be seeing that how you will be using a router as a wireless access point. The option where we have seen in the configuration, that configuring the router over a DSCP or a static IP address. Then we will looking after the VPN configuration on this Wi-Fi router. Wireless access configuration, we will be covering through a wireless access point. We will be taking a wireless access point for the configuration. We will be managing those wireless access points through wireless controllers and so on. So guys, keep watching my videos. We will be covering entire Wi-Fi topics, each and everything in very deep. And if you like my video, please do subscribe to my YouTube channel and share with your friends. Thank you so much. See you in the next video.